This Just the Facts video was produced by the Advisory Board for MWRA Communities to act as a resource for communities looking to fund water and wastewater infrastructure, also known as the forgotten infrastructure. The funding sources here are broken into two categories: federal government funding sources such as the Environmental Protection Agency, the Economic Development Administration, and the Community Development Block Grant Program, and also state government funding sources, most of which can be located through the mass.gov website, though we will also discuss funding from quasi-state agencies, which often are tasked with dispersing state funding. But one quasi-state agency, the MWRA, is slightly different because it is not funded by the state. It is financially supported by rate assessments from communities and their ratepayers. It's important to remember that this video is meant to be a resource for our communities, and we have no specific connection with the grants that we'll discuss shortly. In all cases, it is recommended that you contact the specific group that administers these grants. Starting first with federal government funding opportunities, the EPA is the big hitter when it comes to water and wastewater infrastructure funding, mainly because it's considered green infrastructure. So remember, if you're looking to fund a water or wastewater project, the term green infrastructure usually applies to your project. You can scroll down on the EPA website to see everything they have to offer and links for related sites that detail other funding opportunities for green infrastructure. In many cases, the EPA provides funding to states which then disperse the funds, as is the case with the SRF or State Revolving Fund. For the purposes of this video, we'll discuss the SRF under state funding because that is where Massachusetts communities should apply. A quick internet search of the terms EPA and green infrastructure funding will bring you to their website. Moving on to a couple other federal options, the Economic Development Administration has a grants page, eda.gov/grants. How does this apply to water and wastewater? Well, many opportunities for economic development in the Commonwealth are held back because of a lack of water and wastewater capacity, as detailed in a report by the Collins Center at UMass Boston. Public investment in these infrastructure projects has an excellent return on investment. Continuing with the theme of development, the Community Development Block Grant may not sound like it applies to water and wastewater, but the CDBG specifically lists local government units as eligible grantees, with water, sewer, and drainage systems as eligible activities. What's important to remember here is that just as water and wastewater fall under the green infrastructure umbrella, so too do they fall under the economic or community development umbrella. These are not the only federal funding options available, but checking in with these agencies and the EPA should give you a good idea of what's available. Moving now to the state side, MassDEP's Water Resources website is the home base for funding sources of water and wastewater projects. The option for grants and assistance will lead you to at least 5 options that may apply to water and wastewater infrastructure funding. We'll breeze through them right now, but each is worth a closer look. The Planning and Technical Assistance page is designed to help fund the planning process for a public utility system's long-term capital investments. This can apply to water, wastewater, or stormwater utilities, and the site lists the types of planning projects that have been authorized. The Water Management Act grant program provides funding for planning, demand management, and withdrawal impact mitigation projects. What does that even mean? Well, it turns out that this program can fund things like stormwater management projects and projects to address II. Tough to know that from the grant title, so be sure to read the descriptions carefully. The Drinking Water Supply Protection Grant Program, on the other hand, is pretty straightforward. It's for projects that protect existing or future drinking water supplies or help recharge groundwater. It is a reimbursement program. If your community has a watershed or water quality project, check out the grants and assistance available. This page has lots of downloadable guides and forms that are worth a look. Finally, let's talk SRF, the State Revolving Fund, which has a clean water, aka wastewater side, and a drinking water side. For communities that are unfamiliar with the process, go online and look at the information for the Intended Use Plan, or IUP. What's exciting about the SRF right now is that Senate Bill 2021, passed in FY15, increases the funds that the SRF can loan out, while allowing for 0% interest loans and in some instances principal forgiveness. For questions on your eligibility or Senate 2021's impact on the SRF, contact the Division of Municipal Services within MassDEP. The MassDEP website is a resource worth exploring, and when planning a project, remember to cross-reference the scope of your project with the descriptions of these programs. There are 2 more resources on the mass.gov website that require a mention. First is MassWorks, a program under the Executive Office of Housing and Development. MassWorks represents the consolidation of 6 former grant programs and has been applied to water and wastewater infrastructure on many occasions, such as the City of Taunton's Miles Standish Industrial Park. Another resource on mass.gov is iCubed, a program under the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, which aims at creating new jobs. The official title is the Infrastructure Investment Incentive Program. If your community is looking to create or improve water or wastewater infrastructure to support new private development, look into the I-Cubed program. Moving finally to the quasi-state agencies, we'll look quickly at just two which have been used for water and wastewater projects recently, though there are other agencies out there. The Mass Life Sciences Center is a quasi that was created to implement the Life Sciences Act, a 10-year, $1 billion initiative. As an example, the town of Framingham needed water and wastewater improvements for their technology park to allow Genzyme to follow through with its vision for the property. MLSC provided a $12.9 million grant for the town to make improvements, and Genzyme ended up putting $315 million into their Framingham headquarters. Mass Development is a quasi that looks to help with planning and financing of projects that create jobs, increase the number of housing units, or address infrastructure deficiencies that hinder economic growth. If your community is looking to develop or redevelop a specific site or even a whole area, take a look at Mass Development's site. We'll finish with a reminder of what's available for MWRA communities for water and wastewater infrastructure funding. The local pipeline and water assistance programs have had great success in lining miles and miles of pipes within the municipal systems of MWRA communities. If you haven't checked in on available funding recently, email Carl Leone for information. On the wastewater side, the success of the II program has been met with a rapidly growing need for II work in light of new federal regulations. This led the advisory board to propose and help implement a doubling of the program, double the money to $80 million per phase for phases 9 and 10, double the payback period from 5 years to 10 years to take the burden off communities, and a flip in the grant loan split so that the program is now 75% grant. Communities such as Newton have already started moving with their phase 9 allocations. Here's Newton Mayor Seti Warren accepting a big old check. Are you ready for your phase 9 check? In conclusion of the video, we'd like to mention an accompanying video that highlights how investments in water and wastewater infrastructure lead to economic development. The Green Sheet video hits the highlights of a report from the Collins Center at UMass Boston, including case studies from communities like Framingham and Taunton mentioned earlier, who have used grant funding to get work done. View it for inspiration before perusing the EPA or Mass DEP websites. While we encourage you to contact these agencies directly for information, we would be happy to answer any questions you may have, so feel free to contact us. Also, visit our website at www.mwraadvisoryboard.com for more information and other resources such as our Green Sheet and Just the Facts video series. If you'd like to visit the websites of the agencies just discussed, hit the pause button now. Thank you for watching.